Oh, we are live. Usually I'm used to the countdown. Sorry, everybody. All right. Well, I'm here with András. He is a TTP student who absolutely dominated GMAT Focus, which I'm sure most of you guys here are probably taking. He got a 735, which is just an absolutely amazing score. That's actually a 99.5 percentile in GMAT Focus. So I'm sure that's a score that a lot of you guys here are looking to get. So we're thrilled to be able to chat with András today. He did some really cool stuff with target test prep leading up to his exam. So I'm sure he's going to be able to provide a lot of insight into GMAT Focus. Now, remember, guys, if you like this interview today, just be sure to like the video here because I'm hoping you're going to get a ton out of it. So András, we're going to get into what you did for the GMAT, but like all these interviews, I like to start out by having you kind of explain your background professionally and all that stuff, so people understand where you're coming from as you got into the GMAT. So, welcome, and yeah, let's start with that.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeff. I'm very happy to be here. I hope we will be able to get some very exciting insights through the screen to the guys in the audience. And yeah, jumping right on it. My background is I'm just finishing my bachelor's in business and management studies, and I am planning to go to some master programs in the upcoming year or so, and that's why I decided to take the GMAT. Basically, that's it.
Okay, great. Now, I mean, I know what you did with target test prep, right? But why don't we talk about kind of your process and how all this got started? So we know why you wanted to take the GMAT, your background leading into the GMAT, but how did you kind of start your prep process for the GMAT Focus?
Yeah, so first of all, I was talking to somebody who already went to the same masters as I did, or as I want to go. And I was asking them about their preparation, and they said they did a month-long preparation, just going for random stuff that they could find online and doing some original guide tests and whatsoever. And after that, they joined TTP, and they've seen tremendous results. And after that, I just went to look for some other reviews. And obviously, there was, as everybody knows, an overwhelming amount of positive feedback on TTP, which is for a reason. And after that, I just decided to go with it because I had a very, very short time to prepare for the GMAT. I was also preparing for my language exam. I had job interviews and everything. So basically, I had a very intense 5 weeks for my complete preparation. And before that, I had a little time to get into it with some original guide exercises whatsoever. But it was a very, very short amount of time. So I wanted to have the best material available. And this is how I ended up with TTP.
Okay, very interesting. So you're saying you went into your prep looking for recommendations. You had friends, colleagues, people you know who had used target test prep. And so your initial stage of studying was with TTP. That's correct?
Yeah, exactly. Before that, I just had the GMAT book here with me at home, went for some few exercises. It instantly kicked in that I was lacking behind on the quant. But the problem I faced is that even the original guide, it has a very, very long and easy to understand explanations after every single practice question. That's not the problem, but it's very unstructured. So you get an exercise, you might get it right, you might get it wrong, but it's not in different chapters covering different competencies in quant. And that was my main problem. I saw that my first score was quite good on my first practice or mock exam, but I figured out that I did not have the structure to prepare with the original guides I was having here at home with me. I could practice a lot of questions, but I wouldn't get the main concept behind them. I couldn't really dive into it without using TTP. So that was the main consideration for me.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I talk to students about this a lot because there's always this kind of balancing act between official questions, the official guide, and then how you actually prep. And, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's the official guide has good practice in it, but it's not structured. And it was never intended to be this structured book. So when you go into it, there's a lot of randomness that's happening, right? You're jumping from a rate question to a ratio, to a percent question, for example. And there's no kind of rhyme or reason to that randomness.
Yeah.
But a good way to learn, and I'm assuming you found this in TTP, is a lot of topical learning. I say that as much as I possibly can, topical learning and topical practice. So, how did that help you in target test prep? You mentioned the organization, but what did you feel you got out of the topical learning? And, how do you think that helped you progress to kind of, incrementally build your math skills?
Yeah, it was amazing, and it really helped a lot, actually. And now how you're talking about it, how passionately you're saying that this is the main concept,
Yeah.
I really see that shining back from using TTP as well. It is really built on this concept, I have found, and it was really working for me. I was going chapter by chapter, always doing the designated task at hand. And, sometimes it was a little tedious when I was doing my 6th or 7th or 8th chapter test, and it was very similar questions.
Right.
But maybe I would stop for the day, get back the next day, and I felt that, oh, I know this. And I was really feeling that tedious practice, and being able to concentrate on that chapter only for that time being, it really helped me focus my efforts and also get a very deep understanding of that chapter. And then I was moving to the next one and so on. And this way I could always just focus on that one part, get very deep into it. And then afterwards, when I got back to do some practice tests, whatever, I already had a very, very deep understanding, and I only needed a very little time to combine all of that together and get an overall very good understanding of how this test works.
Yep, that's exactly how it's intended to work. Now, now I know you focused in TTP, you really just focused on Quant, because just remind everybody what your first mock test was. And when you took your first mock, it was prior to target test prep, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and what was the score of that initial mock exam?
That was a 615. Just before that, a day before it, I took an original GMAT mock exam as well. That was a 600. So I figured that I had a choice. I mean, this very interesting gap between the two tests, I had a choice which one to take. And I actually earned a better score in the focus. Obviously, I'm not a native speaker, so it doesn't have the grammar part to it. Which is nice, and I'm also terrible at geometry, so that was also great help. So this is how I decided on doing the Focus Edition, and it was a 615 at first, but I was really lacking behind on the Quant. So my verbal, it was almost perfect. I think I had only one mistake, or maybe I haven't had any. And in the data insights, I was also in the 98th percentile, something like that, on this first mock test. So that gave me a lot of confidence that I should just dive in, go for only the Quant, leave the rest behind, and focus on that area.
Yep, and I see here you got a 74 Quant. So that's where you started, was a 74. So yes, it made complete sense that TTP was what you need. Now, it sounds like you did follow I know you used the course for 35 days, and I will tell people here and anyone watching later, 35 days is a quick amount of time to get through TTP. I would not necessarily say that's the norm, but one of the things I also love to say about target test prep is for certain people, you can take the bits and pieces that you need from it. For example, in your case, you needed the Quant section and you used it. So that's fantastic. That's the picture I would paint for anyone getting into the process. And for others, they need the whole thing. So it really, really just depends. But you did follow the study plan on the quant side. Is that correct?
Yeah, I follow this step by step throughout the end. But just to get back to you on this, I wouldn't recommend anybody to do the whole TTP experience in 35 days, or to spend only like 35 days plus a 1-2 week preparatory phase on the GMAT. I think it deserves, and also it needs a lot more than that. Now, I was very lucky with my preparation and my score, and that also I'm thanking you tremendously for the TTP support in this, but I wouldn't recommend anybody to go for a preparation this short. And also, it's not just for the sake of getting the best score, but also for the sake of enjoying this whole learning experience. Now, for me, even with this short time schedule, TTP was one of my most positive learning experiences in my life, actually, or in my studies, because it was just so enjoyable to go through it step by step, seeing where you're at right now, seeing all the statistics. I was checking them not day by day. I was checking like every hour or every second hour of preparation. I was checking how am I progressing, what's the percentage of the course completed already. And that was very enjoyable and very fun. And I think it needs a little more time than this 1 month, but it's doable. If someone's watching this who's thinking about signing up for TTP for maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks because they have a GMAT coming up for them and they are feeling that they are not prepared enough, even for 2 or 3 weeks, I would recommend signing up for TTP, because it is the best use of your time, in my very honest opinion. Even in a very short time frame, you can get a lot out of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's people who come to us and they always ask, like, I only have a month. And it's like, well, there are things you can do. If you can't get through the whole course, you can pick and choose your spots. There's certain topics you can do if you know your weaknesses. And then look, there's other people who say they only have a month, but they really need 4 to 5 months. And that's something I want, everyone here listening to understand, that this prep process is a very personal journey, and you need to first define, okay, this is how much time I need in totality, regardless of TTP or any other prep resource, right? How much time do I personally need to learn the GMAT? And once you sort that out, you can figure out your timeline. If you have to push your timeline or applications or cycles, you do it because you want to put yourself in the best position to succeed. Again, you did something quite amazing in a short period of time. Can be done by certain folks, but that's usually not the norm. Now, you said you followed the study plan. Did you get through the entire quant study plan? I know we'll talk about the hours per day you were putting in. It was, again, very impressive, because I believe you were also working I think you were working full time. We can talk about that.
Wasn't full time, yeah, but
okay, so close to it. Did you get through all of TTP Quant?
Yeah, I did actually. It was really the center of my focus to get through all of it, because for me it is really important to just have the sense of doing everything I could and putting in all the work that was necessary, and closing the whole TTP quant section and finishing everything was a very, very comforting experience for me. And I felt throughout the whole period of preparation that I needed this. I need to get through the whole thing. So from the first or second day onwards, I was calculating how much I have left, and I was always checking if I'm behind schedule or not. I was always designing what I would do for the next 3, 4, 5 days. This is how it looked for me. And whenever I was lacking behind, I tried to really push it. And even if that was not enough, I decided to leave out a little bit. So maybe there was the word problems section. There you have like 20 practice tests.
Big.
And yeah, it was a huge chunk.
It's a big guy.
Now I'm laughing about it, but when I was into practicing, and it was already 2 a.m. and I saw that I have 20 something practice tests in front of me. Obviously, this wasn't a very fun experience back then. And
Right.
and I saw that, like, obviously there's a limitation to your brain when you're practicing
Right.
something like this. You can't go and do 20 practice tests after each other, because you just get tired and you see that you're making stupid mistakes which are holding you back, and you're basically not practicing. You're just killing yourself, and it makes no sense. So obviously
Right.
you can do
Yeah.
this when you're
Agreed.
very tired. And I saw that if I wanted to complete this whole chapter test part, it would take me like 3 days, because it's just so much. So I decided to leave a few out because I was lacking behind my schedule, and I just had to do it. So I had these little cheatings, but otherwise maybe there are like 10 chapter tests altogether in the whole section, whole quant section, that are left out, and otherwise everything is finished.
Yep, that makes complete sense. Now, you said you studied about 6 to 8 hours a day, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay. So did you break it up like 3 and 3, 4 and 4, anything like that?
Not really. First, you were asking about my job and everything. So in the
Yes.
first few weeks, I was still, like, when I was doing the original guide stuff, I was also preparing for my language exam. I was
Oh,
working full
wow.
time, and I had job interviews. So that was a lot, and that's why I didn't even get into TTP. Doing a few exercises a day in the original guide, that was plenty for me. And then when I had this very intense, like 35 days of TTP, in the
Hmm.
first weeks, I still had a lot of work to do, and everything was still happening. So back then it was really unorganized. And in the last maybe 4 weeks, I would say that's when I really went for it. I tried to limit the work I did. So I did like 10 hours a week, or 20 maybe, if that was the case. And otherwise, whatever time I could spend with TTP, I was putting the hours in. I woke up in the morning, like 8 a.m., something like that. I instantly sat in front of the computer, started it, had a late lunch, and continued to do so in the afternoon, and then into the evening. And I did it until like 11 p.m., 12, sometimes 1 if I really had to. But I was really trying to get in that 7-8 hours of sleep,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're just killing your gains. And it is so tiring to make mindless mistakes. You can really feel when you're doing those mistakes again and again that this is not you. This is not your performance lacking behind. It's your
Right.
sleep lacking behind. It's your
Yep.
diet lacking behind, your
Yep.
exercise especially. And now
Hmm.
I love this about TTP as well, that you guys had these strategy chapters and
Yes.
everything, and you
Yep.
were explaining how diet is very important, and exercise and everything. And obviously all of us knows that, but having you being reminded, even in this very specific preparatory material, it's a very good sign that, hey, probably you should go down for a walk or something. So I try to manage that as well, and put in some runs and whatever to help me focus. And yeah, this is how it went.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to when you're in the moment, you forget about a lot of that stuff. I mean, we do it in so many aspects of our lives. It's like, oh, I'll get to it eventually. And I suppose with GMAT prep you will, because it is a finite, you know, journey for everybody at some point. So you know you'll get back to it. But yeah, I mean, if you're sitting down to study and it's this big slog, and you just don't feel like yourself, as you said, you're just not going to perform up to your level. So it is important, and obviously you do have to give things up in your life when you're studying for the GMAT. I talk about that a lot. But there's a balance, and there are things you can do. And like I said, if it's a 4 to 6 month to 8 month process, then yeah, you're going to have to find the balance between what you did do before your GMAT prep and what you're doing during your GMAT prep. Now, as you got through TTP, were you taking notes? Were you making flashcards? to make sure that, you weren't forgetting things? Like what was going on there?
All right. So on this topic, I'm not an example student here because obviously with this very short amount of preparation time that I had to really focus myself and try to spare my time for the most important aspects of the preparation. So I couldn't take any notes, and I think this was only manageable because everything in TTP is so well organized and so structured. I felt that I didn't necessarily need to. Obviously, it would have been a little better, especially when I was going back and revisiting some older chapters whatsoever. But still, I was fine without doing notes and stuff like that. Also, I had to prepare in such a short time phrase that it was very easy to remember what I was doing like at the beginning of the course, because that was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago or something like that. So that helped as well. But yeah, I would recommend anybody having a proper amount of time to do take proper notes. But if you can't, I think it's all right. And yeah, TTP, obviously, it is very well structured. I was taking the bookmarks, actually. That was instead of note taking. So in TTP, you can bookmark anything from an exercise to a whole chapter to a little definition or explanation. And yeah, I was revisiting those when I did the revision tests. Those were basically my notes. And yeah, that was kind of it.
Did you use our flashcards at all, or equation guide?
The equation guide, yes. The flashcards, okay. I haven't had the time for those.
Yeah.
But the equation guide, absolutely. So basically, that was the first thing that I used. I just went through it to see all of the concepts needed for a successful GMAT quant. I was going through all of it. I read it, and then I put it aside for a month. And just the day or 2 days before the exam, I picked it up again just to go through it a little, also as a revision. And I also took it to the test center with me. And just half an hour, 45 minutes before the exam, I decided to just run through the whole thing to have the sense of completement regarding the course, and to just have this feeling that, hey, I know everything. This is all in my head. I got this. It's going to be fine.
Right. Cool. And tell me about, like, okay, so then you took your next practice test when you were done with TTP, and you did amazing. Yeah. You got a 735 with a 90 Q. So that was up. Oh no, sorry, that was your final. Was that your final? No, that was your final test. Did you take another?
My final test. I took 2 other mock tests right
in between
when I finished with TTP, or like right at finishing with TTP. Obviously, this is something that you recommend in the course as well.
Yes.
That people should do some mock tests and spend some weeks on doing mock tests. Obviously, I haven't had that kind of time, but I managed to get into mock tests. The first was a 625, and the second was a 635. So those were quite far, actually, from my end score, like my final result. Obviously, this 635, it was amazing to receive in the test center. Now, those 2 that I was mentioning, they are lower a lot because I couldn't finish data insights in both of them. I clicked on the last question, but there's this thing I was reading about that if you click on the last answer but you don't press go through, then you won't get the point for it in the practice session. So that was lowering my score with quite a bit with the penalties. But also it was a very good sign that, hey, you should really focus on this on exam day, that you should really finish every section. Even if you slip somewhere, even if you don't get the last few questions, you should finish it.
Yeah, click in. So, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good reminder for everybody here. But yeah, those were very good scores. I was dreaming about getting a 645, 635 on exam day. I would have been very fine with that, actually. Obviously, hoping for the best possible. And yeah, when I went for exam day, everything just went a little bit better, and I was very lucky to get this score.
Good. Yeah, no, I mean, your score was amazing. And how did you feel? Like, obviously, you did a ton in TTP, you did some of the official guide stuff. How did you feel TTP Quant correlating to what you saw on your GMAT Focus from a quant perspective?
I mean, my end result was perfect on the quant side, so I didn't make any mistakes on quant.
Right.
Which is, I think, kind of great.
I'd say.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
obviously I was not expecting to have a spotless quant result.
Hmm.
I think much of this is luck, obviously. So having 2 mistakes, 3 mistakes, 5 mistakes, these are very close to each other sometimes. And I believe really depends on what kind of questions do you get and what form you're in, how do you respond to failure when you don't get a question right whatsoever. I think I was very lucky on exam day, but also TTP helped me a lot on this, the quant aspect of TTP, because whatever question I got, I knew how to solve that. I knew that I knew it. Like, even if I was encountering a question that I couldn't solve in the 2 minute frame, or I felt that I would need a lot more time and just press through it because it was a lot, I knew that I could do it if I had the time, because I did the whole TTP experience, and I just got every concept out of it, and I knew every single question type. So that was really comforting, and this was especially apparent when I did my first practice exam after TTP. Then I had only 5 days left until
Hmm.
exam day, and I was just curious, like, I'm going to write this, I was saying to myself. And if it's going to be exactly like the questions in TTP, I'm going to be good. But
Hmm.
I don't know what the hell will happen to me if these questions will be difficult, or different in difficulty, different in whatever aspect. And I opened it, and hey, this is exactly like the question I encountered in TTP. And then the next question came, and I exactly knew what was the concept, what type of table I had to write on my notes, how to fill it out to have an answer in 45
Right.
seconds. So it was crazy. And yeah, I basically prepared not just for doing a quant test. I prepared for doing those very exact exercises one by one.
Yep. No, that's great, man. And that's, that's how we design TTP. I mean, we know that it's not going to be the exact questions, but we're hoping to hit every corner or as many corners as you can of all of these different topics. So when you get to the exam and you see this stuff, you're familiar and you have a plan of attack. And that sounds like that's exactly what happened with you, which is great.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, there's a few questions here. The first one for the quant sections, did you get good scores in all chapter tests? I find it hard to get above 80% in the hard level tests. Okay, well, first I will just interject really quickly, then you can give your experience. You don't need to get it above 80% in the hard tests. We specifically say 65% for expert plus, I believe, if not 60, and then 50% for the expert track. So those are hard questions. We're not expecting you to do more than that. Now, Andras, from your perspective, what were you getting in your chapter tests?
I think I never got an 80 plus percentage in the hard questions.
Right.
And it was never my aim. So I was just talking to somebody who's preparing for the GMAT now, and I recommended TTP to them. And I said, hey, you should, I know that they are aiming for a much lower GMAT score. And they said that they were going to leave out all the hard questions, whatever. And I said, no, do all the hard
Right.
questions as well. The point of those hard questions is not to familiarize yourself with them, because
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get questions like that on the GMAT, in my opinion, or very unlikely that you will get many of them. Maybe you will encounter 1 or 2 of those types of questions. I did not encounter any on my exam of these very hard questions. I think what they are really good for is to try them out and see what you're not understanding very well, and then checking the answers, checking the whole explanation, and really understanding the concept. So the easy and medium questions for me, those were about speed and recognizing the underlying principles and the whole theme of the question, and just solving them like I would solve them on exam day. And doing the hard questions, those were about understanding the concept. So even when it was really hard, not to be frustrated about solving them for like 50% accuracy whatsoever, I went for them, did them, and checked the answers. And those really helped me to understand the concept behind and to get familiar with the different ways of exercises giving you the same kind of problem. So this was it for me. You should really not worry about not hitting them for 80% or so. If you hit them for 50, 60, and you go after your mistakes and check the answers, I think you will get the most out of it.
Yep, totally agree. And the thing is that you're never going to see, I mean, you will see some of those hard questions if you do well, but you're not going to, you're not going to see, 20 hard questions in a row. So yeah, getting the 50 to 60% is just fine. Other questions in the data, is the data insight section more logic based or math based? Any thoughts?
I don't know actually if the two are connected, the quant part and the data insights part on exam day, because I was feeling that after doing a very successful quant part, I had a very hard time with data insights, and I got a lot of quant related questions. I don't know if this was GMAT going after me on purpose after getting the sense that I was doing well on my quant and giving me a little harder time on the data insight part. I don't know if this is the case. I don't know how the algorithm works, but generally I would say that it has a lot of logic part as well, and also some quant into it. Especially those quant parts, I think they can be very, very hard on you because you have a very little time to solve them when they are in front of you. And obviously they have these tables and everything, and it just takes a lot of time to read them, to understand the concept. And then when you have to calculate as well, I think that's very, very complex. So now I know I haven't had any time to prepare with TTP for the data insights part, but obviously that's something that I would recommend to anybody. I think I got very lucky that this data insights part is very natural to me, and I have this quite good reading comprehension and quite developed logic regarding these exercises. So I was getting the majority of them right for my first attempt at mock exams. So I was lucky with this, but I don't think it's the case for many actually. These are quite hard. They are very lengthy exercises. You have very huge time pressure. So I would recommend anybody to spend a lot of time on it. And yes, it needs logic as well, and also the quant part. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that's what we're noticing. Like there's definitely certain math topics involved for sure. TPA math, table analysis, graphics interpretation. Now someone asked about the data insights. Now I know you didn't use us for data insights, so I will jump in. I think we have the most comprehensive data insights section of anybody out there. We did an amazing job on it. Remember, we teach data sufficiency still in our quant.
Yeah, I was going through those.
Yeah, because it's the best way to learn it. We took out the pure math data sufficiency stuff. And, from there, you'll see that data sufficiency starts around the word problem section. Someone's asking if you have any tips for non-native speakers for verbal, but it sounds like you kind of were just really good at verbal. So you didn't really do much more preparing, right? You just kind of were already good at it.
Yeah, I did my first mock exam. I made only 1 or 0 mistakes in the verbal part. So I was very, very lucky on that. Obviously, I think for non-native speakers, even when they are lacking behind on quant, verbal can be one of the most difficult parts to the GMAT, because you can go and sign up to TTP and do the quant in 1 month if you don't want life, and then you're good. But verbal, it's very different. You have to have a good command of the language.
Right.
You have to have very good reading comprehension. So obviously those who are a little lacking behind on that will have a very hard time preparing or need more time for preparing. But obviously GMAT Focus is out there for us non-native speakers, as we don't have to go through the grammar section anymore with the sentence correction, which was terrible for me. I was like averaging 50% of them when I tried it out. I think GMAT Focus is a lot better for us on this aspect. And I strongly believe that what I saw in TTP regarding the quant must be the same for verbal as well. If you go through it, I'm sure that you will get plenty of practice to get these exact question types. And also just one more thing, because I think it's really important, especially from me, somebody who's not a native speaker and who got into the 28th percentile in verbal, that you don't have to understand everything. Now, some people I've been talking to, they said that they were really freaking out on the verbal because they understood the half of it. Many questions were too hard for them. Many paragraphs, they couldn't understand what was it about. Now, it happened for me as well. When I did my best verbals, still, I had a very hard time to understand like a biological text. Which animal was it talking about? What was even the question? Right. What was the topic? So it's really hard to understand specific words and contexts. In many cases, it shouldn't put you down. You need to practice the specific exercise types, the specific questions, and get the main ideas, and then have a very, very good sense of grabbing the right answers from the pool. I think that's basically it for us. We won't understand the text, even with a very, very good command of the language. So you just have to aim for the best understanding possible, and then having a lot of luck in your hand.
Yeah, well, there's always a bit element of luck to it, but I think, you know, what we've seen is if you put yourself in a position to be quote unquote lucky, you know, like you mentioned with Quant, yeah, you got lucky because you basically made 0 mistakes, but you were in a position to be able to make 0 mistakes because you had a really good handle on what you did. You got through the TTP material the way that we asked students to do it. So you really did do everything we asked with what you used the course for. You did it obviously in a short period of time, but it shows that that can really, really pay off. And, you know, as long as you're cool and calm and collected on test day, you know, you'll be in a really good spot. I guess there's one last question, and then I think we can wrap up here. So your order, what was the order of the section that you, the order of your exam sections?
That's a good one. I was thinking a lot about that too. I went for Quant first. That was a very clear decision for me. It was giving me the hardest time. I wanted to get through it, and also wanted to get through it with the freshest brain possible. So I just went for that. And then I instantly went for the data insights afterwards. And then I decided to take my break, and afterwards I went for the verbal. I made this decision because I felt that I was really getting tired of concentration by the end of the exam. So I wanted to take the break before the last section. And I felt that if I did data insights right after Quant, it would help me a little bit to stay in this very math-related topic and to keep focused on the math, and then have a break and do something very different. Now, this worked for me, but I don't think it matters too much, like this data insights and verbal part. For me, the starting with the quant was very important. So I would recommend that to you if you're in similar shoes. But the other two, and taking the break, you really have to feel for it, decide it before the exam. And if you feel different, just change it on the spot. You have the ability to decide on the spot if you want to take the break or no. And just really focus on yourself, see what you need, but it won't make too much difference actually.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think not to overthink it is the big thing, because I think a lot of people do overthink that aspect of it. So, but look, this is great. It's super exciting to see some of these awesome GMAT Focus scores rolling in from TTP students. Like, we're really, really happy. The transition has been great. The transition using our course has been great. Like I said, we even though you didn't use data insights, we really put some hard work into that, and it's come out beautifully in my opinion. Quant is still top notch. Our verbal course is great. And so, yeah, I'm excited to have more of these interviews for GMAT Focus. And to be crystal clear, we have a full GMAT Focus course. We get this asked a lot. It's now the bulk of what our students are using, because the classic GMAT will be done in essentially a month. So we've been fully live with GMAT Focus stuff for a while now, and that's what people are using. We're also running a sale through the end of the month, just so everybody knows. 20% off using code holiday20. So again, we're running that through the end of the month. Get the trial if you want to see it and see what András did. But thank you so much for taking some time during the holiday. And we wish you luck. We want to hear how things end up with your business school applications and all that good stuff. And, don't be a stranger. And for everyone else here, I'm sure I'll be back soon. So thanks again, everybody. And thanks again, András.
Thank you very much, Chad. See you.
Bye, everybody.